Stop being kind. Now, let me clarify what I mean by that before you twist it into something it's not. I'm not saying abandon decency or compassion. I'm not advocating for cruelty or indifference. But kindness, as it's often understood in today's world, has become a distorted virtue more about appeasement and avoidance than strength and authenticity. We've been told over and over that being kind is the ultimate good, that it's the solution to all conflict, all tension, all discomfort. But the problem is, kindness, when untethered from truth, becomes cowardice. It becomes a weapon used to avoid confrontation, to sidestep responsibility, and to smother hard realities under a blanket of shallow niceties. Consider this. How many times have you bitten your tongue when you knew you should speak up? How many times have you smiled when you felt disrespected, nodded when you disagreed, or extended a hand when you knew you were being manipulated? Was that kindness, or was it fear? Fear of being disliked, of making waves, of being seen as not nice. True strength is not in the facade of perpetual kindness, but in the ability to stand firm, to speak the truth, and to set boundaries even when it makes others uncomfortable. Because life is not a utopia where everyone's feelings can be protected at all times. Real progress, real growth comes from tension and conflict. It comes from hard conversations, from moments of discomfort that push people to confront what they'd rather ignore. Being kind all the time often means you're lying, not only to others, but to yourself. You tell people what they want to hear instead of what they need to hear. You say it's okay when it's not okay. You pretend things are fine when they're falling apart. And in doing so, you rob others and yourself of the opportunity to face reality and grow stronger from it. Stop being kind and start being courageous. Courageous enough to tell the truth, even if it stings. Courageous enough to set boundaries, even if it means disappointing someone. Courageous enough to say, no, this isn't acceptable, and to mean it. Because if you don't do this, if you continue to hide behind a mask of hollow kindness, you will end up resentful, bitter, and lost. There's a difference between being kind and being good. Being good is hard. It requires you to wrestle with your own weaknesses, to hold yourself accountable, and to do what's right, not what's easy. Kindness, on the other hand, is often easy. It has nothing of you but superficial gestures and empty platitudes. So stop being kind. Instead, be honest. Be principled. Be brave. That's how you make a real impact. That's how you earn respect, not just from others, but from yourself. And in the end, that's what truly matters. Kindness, when it lacks authenticity, often becomes a hollow gesture that can hinder rather than help. Many people equate kindness with politeness or agreeability, assuming that by avoiding conflict and maintaining harmony, they are doing good. However, this kind of surface-level kindness can often be more about self-preservation than genuinely supporting others. When we prioritize being perceived as kind over being truthful, we risk enabling dysfunction, avoiding accountability, and perpetuating problems that need resolution. Imagine a scenario where a person continually makes poor decisions, but instead of offering honest feedback, you simply nod, smile, and tell them they're doing fine. This may seem kind in the moment. It avoids confrontation and spares their feelings, but in reality, it's a disservice to them. Without the truth, they remain unaware of their mistakes and miss the opportunity to learn and grow. In this way, false kindness not only limits their development, but also undermines your integrity. True kindness is not about avoiding discomfort. It's about fostering growth, even if that requires temporary unease. Authenticity involves saying what needs to be said, not what someone wants to hear. It requires an understanding that kindness is not always synonymous with softness. There are times when being kind means being direct, firm, or even critical. This doesn't mean abandoning empathy. It means delivering honesty in a way that comes from a place of care, not malice. When kindness is paired with authenticity, It becomes a force for positive change rather than a shield for avoiding difficult truths. One of the key dangers of inauthentic kindness is that it often stems from a desire to avoid conflict or rejection. People fear being seen as harsh, rude, or unlikable, so they resort to excessive agreeability. This tendency, however, can lead to a cycle of resentment and frustration. When you suppress your own needs or values to maintain the illusion of kindness, you create a gap between your true self and the image you present to the world. Over time, this gap becomes a source of internal tension, leading to bitterness and dissatisfaction. Moreover, false kindness can relations. When people realize that your words or actions lack sincerity, they may begin to question your motives and reliability. Authenticity, on the other hand, fosters deeper connections. When you are honest yet respectful, others are more likely to trust and value your input, even if it's uncomfortable in the moment. This builds stronger, healthier relationships founded on mutual respect and understanding. It's important to recognize that authentic kindness requires courage. It takes strength to risk temporary discomfort for the sake of long-term growth. Whether that's confronting a friend about their behavior, addressing workplace issues, or setting firm boundaries in your personal life. While it may be easier to maintain the appearance of kindness by avoiding these situations, doing so often leaves underlying issues unresolved, creating greater challenges in the future. Kindness, when rooted in authenticity, goes beyond surface level pleasantries. It challenges others to grow, deepens relationships, and aligns with one's values. While it may not always feel comfortable, this form of kindness is far more meaningful and transformative than Farn's shallow effort to keep the peace. Fear often disguises itself as kindness, and this subtle deception can shape our actions in ways we fail to recognize. Many people default to what they perceive as kindness because it allows them to avoid the discomfort of conflict, rejection, or judgment. On the surface, their behavior appears selfless or considerate, but beneath it lies an aversion to difficult situations and an unwillingness to confront uncomfortable truths. In this way, fear becomes the driving force behind their so-called kindness, diminishing its value and authenticity. When we act out of fear rather than conviction, we prioritize short-term ease over long-term integrity. Imagine someone who consistently agrees with others to avoid arguments. They nod along in conversations, offer praise when it's undeserved, and suppress their true opinions. While this might create a temporary sense of harmony, it's a fragile and artificial peace. Their reluctance to express disagreement or challenge harmful behavior comes not from genuine compassion, but from a fear of being disliked or causing tension. Such behavior may seem outwardly kind, but it lacks the courage needed to create meaningful change or foster genuine relationships. This dynamic often plays out in everyday situations. For example, consider a workplace scenario where an employee notices a colleague making repeated mistakes that affect the team. Instead of addressing the issue directly, they choose to stay silent, thinking they're sparing the colleague's feelings. However, this decision, rooted in fear of confrontation, ultimately harms both the colleague and the team. The colleague misses an opportunity to improve, and the team continues to suffer from the unresolved problem. What appeared to be kindness in the moment was, in fact, an act of avoidance that perpetuated the very issue it sought to avoid. Fear-based kindness also erodes personal boundaries. People who act this way often find themselves overcommitted, exhausted, and resentful because they struggle to say no. They agree to requests they cannot handle or tolerate behavior they find unacceptable, all in the name of being kind. However, this isn't true kindness. It's a fear of disappointing others, of being perceived as selfish, or of facing potential backlash. Over time, this pattern leads to frustration, burnout, and strained relationships as the person's suppressed needs and emotions eventually surface. Furthermore, fear-driven kindness can undermine trust. When people realize that someone's kind gestures are motivated by fear rather than genuine care, it can breed skepticism. For example, if someone never expresses disagreement, others may start to question their sincerity, wondering whether their kindness is authentic or simply a strategy to avoid conflict. Authentic kindness, by contrast, stems from a place of honesty and self-assurance. It requires the ability to act with compassion while remaining true to one's values and boundaries. Overcoming fear-based kindness begins with self-awareness. It requires recognizing when fear is influencing decisions and challenging the instinct to prioritize short-term comfort over long-term integrity. By learning to face discomfort head-on, individuals can act from a place of genuine care rather than fear. True kindness is not about avoiding conflict or seeking approval. It's about being honest, courageous, and compassionate in a way that fosters growth and respect for everyone involved. Hard conversations are the foundation of real progress, both personally and collectively. While they are often uncomfortable and even intimidating, these conversations are essential for growth, understanding, and problem solving. It is through the friction of addressing uncomfortable truths that individuals and communities find clarity and direction. Avoiding such moments might seem easier in the short term, but it comes at the expense of resolving deep-seated issues and building stronger connections. Growth is not born from avoiding discomfort, but from leaning into it and tackling the difficult realities we often try to escape. In relationships, whether personal or professional, hard conversations are inevitable. They emerge when boundaries are crossed, misunderstandings arise, or behavior needs correction. When these moments are ignored or sidestepped, problems tend to fester beneath the surface. Tension builds, resentment grows, and what could have been resolved with an honest discussion turns into a larger, more complicated issue. While confronting someone directly may feel daunting, it is far more effective and respectful than pretending everything is fine when it isn't. Hard conversations are not about attacking or blaming. They're about finding solutions, setting boundaries, and creating mutual understanding. Consider the workplace as an example. Imagine a team struggling with a colleague who consistently underperforms, delaying projects and increasing the workload for others. The natural inclination might be to avoid addressing the issue for fear of upsetting the individual or causing conflict. Yet this avoidance only compounds the problem. Productivity continues to suffer, the team grows resentful, and the colleague remains unaware of the impact of their actions. A hard conversation, on the other hand, has the potential to change everything. By addressing the issue directly but constructively, the colleague has an opportunity to improve, the team feels supported, and the organization as a whole benefits. Hard conversations also play a crucial role in personal growth. When people are unwilling to face uncomfortable truths about themselves, they stagnate. Constructive criticism, though sometimes painful, is one of the most valuable tools for self-improvement. It allows individuals to see blind spots, confront weaknesses, and develop the skills or mindset needed to overcome challenges. Avoiding feedback or dismissing criticism might shield one's ego temporarily, but it ultimately hinders progress. Those who embrace hard conversations as opportunities for growth develop resilience, self-awareness, and the ability to adapt to life's challenges. It's important to understand that hard conversations require preparation and emotional intelligence. Simply blurting out frustrations without consideration for the other person's perspective can lead to defensiveness and conflict. Effective communication involves approaching the situation with empathy, clarity, and a focus on solutions rather than blame. The goal is not to win the conversation, but to create an environment where understanding can flourish and positive change can take place. Hard conversations are transformative because they challenge us to grow, deepen our relationships, and address what truly matters. They are uncomfortable by nature, but discomfort is a small price to pay for the clarity, resolution, and progress they bring. Avoiding these moments may provide temporary relief, but it is through leaning into them that we unlock our potential and move forward with purpose. Real growth requires courage, and courage is built in those moments when we choose truth over avoidance. There is a fundamental distinction between being good and being kind, and understanding this difference is crucial for leading a life of integrity and purpose. Kindness, as it is often understood, focuses on maintaining harmony, avoiding conflict, and pleasing others. While these intentions may seem noble, they often prioritize short-term comfort over long-term impact. Being good, on the other hand, demands a deeper commitment to doing what is right, even when it is difficult or unpopular. It requires a sense of moral clarity and a willingness to face the challenges that come with standing by one's principles. Kindness is frequently associated with ease. It is easy to offer a comforting word when someone is struggling, even if that word glosses over the reality of their situation. It is easy to agree with others to avoid confrontation or to give someone what they want rather than what they truly need. But this form of kindness is shallow and often self-serving. It's to preserve an image of agreeability and to shield oneself from discomfort. It asks nothing of us but superficial gestures, and it often fails to address the deeper issues at hand. Being good, by contrast, is not easy. It requires us to confront difficult truths, both about ourselves and others. It calls on us to make decisions that align with our values, even when those decisions come at a personal cost. For example, standing up to a friend who is engaging in harmful behavior may strain the relationship, but it is a necessary act of goodness. Remaining silent to preserve the friendship might seem kind, but it ultimately enables the harm to continue. Goodness demands courage, accountability, and a commitment to the well-being of others, even when it means facing resistance or criticism. Moreover, being good often involves challenging the status quo and taking a stand for what is just and fair. This might mean speaking out against unethical practices in the workplace, addressing inequality in society, or advocating for those who cannot advocate for themselves. These actions are rarely easy or comfortable, but they are what make goodness a transformative force. Kindness, if not rooted in this deeper sense of purpose, risks becoming passive and ineffectual. The difference between being good and being kind also extends to how we treat ourselves. Kindness to oneself is often mistaken for indulgence or avoiding difficult work, like telling yourself it's okay to give up on a challenge because it's too hard. But being good to yourself means holding yourself accountable, pushing through adversity, and striving for growth, even when it's uncomfortable. It's about respecting yourself enough to do what is necessary for your long-term well-being, rather than taking the easy way out. In essence, kindness without goodness lacks depth, strength, and purpose. True impact comes from the pursuit of goodness, acting with integrity, standing up for what is right, and holding yourself and others to a higher standard. This is not always the easiest path, but it is the one that leads to meaningful change and fulfillment. Being good is hard, but it is also the most genuine expression of care for yourself, others, and the world around you. Boundaries and honesty are acts of courage that are essential for maintaining healthy relationships, fostering personal well-being, and living a life of integrity. Setting boundaries and being honest requires strength because they often involve discomfort, confrontation, and the possibility of disappointing others. However, these actions are not acts of selfishness. They are essential for ensuring that your values, needs, and well-being are respected. They are also a profound expression of care because they provide clarity and authenticity in relationships, allowing others to know where they stand and how to engage with you in a meaningful way. Setting boundaries begins with recognizing your own worth and acknowledging that you have the right to protect your emotional, physical, and mental energy. Many people struggle with this because they equate boundary setting with being unkind or uncooperative. They fear being perceived as difficult or selfish, so they continually say yes when they mean no, tolerate behavior that makes them uncomfortable, or stretch themselves thin to meet the expectations of others. While this might seem generous on the surface, it often leads to resentment, exhaustion, and a loss of self-respect. Setting boundaries, on the other hand, is an act of self-respect. It communicates to others that your time, energy, and values matter, and that you are willing to prioritize them, even if it means facing pushback. Honesty is closely tied to boundaries as it requires the courage to communicate your truth clearly and directly. It's easy to fall into the habit of sugarcoating the truth or avoiding it altogether to spare someone's feelings. However, dishonesty or avoidance often leads to misunderstandings, unresolved issues, and a lack of trust. Honesty may be uncomfortable in the moment, but it paves the way for clarity and growth. For example, telling a friend that their behavior has hurt you might lead to a difficult conversation, but it also provides an opportunity to address the issue and strengthen the relationship. Avoiding the conversation might feel easier, but it ultimately prevents resolution and creates distance between you. Both boundaries and honesty require resilience because they often involve facing criticism or rejection. People who are used to you always saying yes might react negatively when you begin to assert yourself. Similarly, those who are unaccustomed to hearing the truth might resist or even lash out when confronted with it. But it's important to remember that their initial discomfort is not a reflection of your worth or the validity of your actions. True relationships, whether personal or professional, are built on mutual respect and understanding, which can only exist when both honesty and boundaries are present. Moreover, boundaries and honesty are not just acts of courage toward others, they are acts of courage toward yourself. They require you to confront your own fears of rejection, failure, or judgment, and to prioritize long-term well-being over short-term comfort. They push you to define what matters most to you and to live in alignment with those values, even when it's hard. In doing so, you build self-respect, foster healthier relationships, and create a life that reflects your true self. Ultimately, boundaries and honesty are not about building walls, but about creating structures that protect your values and foster authenticity. They are acts of courage because they require vulnerability and strength, but they are also acts of care for yourself and for the relationships you value most. Through these actions, you create a foundation for trust, respect, and personal integrity that benefits everyone involved.